This is in 1970s, to be precise, in 1973 and 74. Five of us, five university students and best friends who were trusted. Even before that, we were discussing about Ethiopia. What can we do about Ethiopia and the poverty, the injustice, and all other things. But in 1973, we decided, we agreed, in a way, to do something about Ethiopia, which means to change Ethiopia. And we started meeting regularly as a group of five students, friends, at least once a week, otherwise sometimes every day, and start discussing how can we change and what do we do. So our vision was to change Ethiopia, but we had no idea how. So right at the same time, in the 1970s, this Marxism-Leninism, the ideology, and communism, socialism, communism, was in Africa, in many parts of Africa, and it started to come in literatures in Ethiopia too. So we somehow get those literatures, start getting those literatures and start studying Marxist-Leninist ideology. And we studied that for more than 2 years. And then we embraced Marxism to ourselves, and in a way we started believing in it, and we took it to be, this is a way that we have to change Ethiopia, the ideological way. Then according to that ideology, we started organizing ourselves. First, as I said earlier, five of us, and then five of us began to include others, bring others into small groups, and within a year's time, we became hundreds of small groups, clandestine, of course, because we were not allowed to do that kind of thing legally by the government, so we had to do it clandestine. And then within about 2 years of time, we covered many parts of the country with our small group, clandestine small groups and networks. So we called ourselves communists. We became communists, and we gave our life for that. And in my whole life, I had no any kind of religious affiliations, or I had no God, and I didn't believe in God. So I was an atheist. Then later on, of course, I became a communist. And when we did this, I was only 17 years old, college student. Then after some time, because the government started to kill young people, because there was a revolutionary situation in the country. This is in 1974. And the military dictatorship took power, killed the king. We had a king at that time, and we continued our opposition against that military dictatorship. But we couldn't continue in the city, so we quit our education from university, and about 17 of us or so, we went to the mountain and started guerrilla warfare. We were less than 20 when we started, and we had only 2 guns, and with that we started organizing and recruiting young people from the rural areas, from small towns, and teaching them our vision about what to change in Ethiopia. And then, of course, we were also started fighting against the government army. And step by step, we started organizing an army. So we fought there for 15 years in the mountains as guerrilla fighters. And we built an army, a lot of army, close to 100,000 within 15 years. And we had all the weapons from the government army captured. And then in 1991, after 15 years of armed struggle, we defeated the government army and we took power. that government was supported by the Soviets. We were a Maoist Chinese kind of communists. So we wanted to build Ethiopia into a Chinese kind of a Maoist kind of country, socialist country. So we took power, and one of my friends became a president, and I became a prime minister, which is a vice president kind of thing, mainly in charge of the economy. He was an executive president in charge of everything. So we started socialist policies, economic policies and other political policies. But after about 3 years, I started questioning the very policies that we fought for, because I tried the policies and I found out that it's not working. It's not working as we wished to work before, right from the beginning. So I started an idea of changing our policies into a market economy and a democracy. But that friend of mine who was the president, and also the others, they didn't want to change. So a conflict arose between us because of difference of ideas and difference of the policies. I wanted to change, and some people, of course, were with me, but the majority, most of them, they didn't want to change. And after 2 years, election was coming on, general election. And that friend of mine who was the president, he knew that I was becoming kind of popular, and he was afraid that he would lose his presidency in the election, and he had to conspire against me. And they did that, and they charged us, me and a few others. But the focus was mainly on me, on abuse of power, they said, and also treason. And they put us in jail. They put me in jail. And without any due process of law, a special court set for me, for my case, sentenced me for 18 years. And I had to go to prison. When I was imprisoned, I was still an atheist, even though I abandoned my communist ideology, but I was still an atheist. So I had God. And all my life, as long as I remember, I had no experience of church, Bible, God, Jesus Christ, anything. I just grew up being an atheist. But then that prison was very difficult for me. First, it was one of the harshest, prison physically. And I was tortured and beaten and even poisoned after about 2 years. So it was very difficult in that sense, but more than even that, I felt that I was betrayed by my own best friend who was the president, and that really hurt me. And every time I was thinking of that president, a former friend who betrayed me, and I was thinking of taking revenge, like killing him. I had no idea how I come out of that prison, on the one hand. And I, in fact, was thinking sometime somebody will come and shoot me and I'll be killed here. But on the other hand, I was angry, because of the betrayal that he did. And I was always thinking of taking revenge, killing him. But that was really killing me, not him. It was so hard on me. Even I started becoming, sick, different kinds of problems, physical problems. And one thing that I learned there at that time, when I learned it later on, is that revenge, hatred, and unforgiveness kills oneself. It kills ourselves, even physically and emotionally and of course spiritually too. So that happened for me for 5 years. During these 5 years, another thing I was doing was I started reading books. That was the only thing that I was allowed to do. Otherwise, I was in solitary confinement. I was not allowed to see anyone. Even my wife and we had our 2 children. I was not allowed even to see them. And I was not visited by anyone. I had my cell surrounded by a wall, and I was not allowed to even be meeting with other prisoners. So I was by myself in solitary confinement, except the police guards. All 12 years, by the way. So that also was another problem, difficult for me. That gets me angry. Anyways, I tried, between those 5 years, I tried to commit suicide, to kill myself by cutting my veins with glasses, but I survived somehow. And later on I started reading books, just to get some kind of hope, because the whole thing was dark and hopeless. And I had no idea where my family were, because I couldn't be able to meet them. So all these things added up. It was very, very heavy on me, very difficult. Then 5 years went on. Everything that I tried to do didn't help me. I studied almost all kinds of religions, including Islam, finally, for 2 years. But nothing happened. Nothing could come to give me hope. Then on the end of 5 years, on the 5th year, something miraculous happened. What happened was, there was this nurse that brought me a tract, a small piece of paper, and she gave it to me. And it was on that tract that for the first time I heard and I knew about the name Jesus. On that tract there were 3 things written. One was, Jesus loves you. Well, I was introduced the name Jesus, and it says loves me, but it gave me no meaning. You know, how can somebody called Jesus loves me, and why? So then the second says from the Gospel of John, it says Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life. And finally it says one thing that really hit me. It says Jesus is the only one who can give you a new life. And that gave me a little bit of meaning, but I had no idea how. So but really took me to think about it. What does it mean, and who is this Jesus, and how he loves me, how he can give me life? I started thinking about that. And I think through that word, somehow, God started working in me. That's what I, in retrospect, understood. But then the whole day I was thinking about that small paper, and I was reading it again and again and again. Nothing happened. Then I went to my bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up. When I woke up, my room was filled with light. And within that light, there were these bubbles of colorful light, lot of them, all sorts of color, moving in the room. And I slowly got up and sat and started looking around what's going on. And right in front of me there is this wall, and from that wall there came another drop of light, and that drop of light started expanding and became like a screen in front of me. And on that screen, there was this figure that looks like a shape of a person standing. Not the details of it, It's just the shape made of light, and that shape looks like a person. And from that shape also comes out ray of light. And then after a while, and by then my whole body was started shivering and shaking and started sweating. And then this audible voice came out. And that voice, even though the figure was in front of me, the voice looks like it comes from all directions. So it said, I am Jesus. Believe in me and follow me. If you believe in me and follow me, I am the only one who can give you the new life that you are looking for. I am the life. That was what he said. And then one by one started, vanishing, moving out, and it became dark again. But I found out myself that I was on the floor. The whole hours after that, I was kind of unconscious and crying, weeping and sweating, and my whole body was glowing just like a fire. Then in the morning, I knew that I heard that thing and I knew that I saw that figure, but I couldn't believe that. In fact, I was thinking that something wrong went on in my mind, and some kind of hallucination, or because of my anger or something. I thought I was going some kind of being mad or crazy, something like that. So I said no. But at the same time, what I did was, again involuntarily, without even being conscious of it, I went on the floor, on my knee, and I started praying. And that's the first time that I ever prayed. I had no idea about prayer. I'm a communist, a guerrilla fighter, a violent person with gun. I have nothing with regard to prayer. But I started praying. But what I was saying again and again was these words. I was saying, you who claim to be Jesus, or who said that you are Jesus, whom I don't know about you, I have no idea, and say you can give a new life. That's what I'm looking for. So if you are serious about this, why don't you come back and show me? That was what I was saying, again and again and again, repeatedly. And nothing happened. I did that continually almost all day, and nothing happened. So in disappointment, I went to my bed and I slept. And again, at some point in the middle of the night, I woke up just like it did the previous night. And then the same thing happened. He came, the same lights, the same bubbles. He came and he said, repeated the whole thing. He said, I am Jesus. Believe in me and follow me. If you believe in me and follow me, yes, I am the only one who can give you the life that you are looking for. I am the life. But he also added two more things for me. He said, I will get you out of this place, and I will send you to the world, and you will testify of me. Then the last thing he said was, don't be afraid, I am always with you. Then goes back everything, and the same thing happened. But then in the morning, it gave me a little bit of sense, simply because he came back and he said the same things. That gave me, well, it may not be going wrong. It may be really something that is serious. So I have to try, even though I don't know how and what and things like that. So I started saying that. But then, as if I want to be sure about the thing, I did that prayer that I did the previous day, the whole day now, with commitment, kind of. As if I am doing my part and I am asking him to do his part, to prove and do me a favor kind of thing. So sure enough, the third night he came back and he repeated the whole thing again. And after that I said, I am in. I have to try this thing. And for that matter, I said, I don't lose anything. So let me try, I don't know how. So the way out to try, I saw, is by writing a note. I wrote a note, a little note on a piece of paper. And I gave it to that nurse who brought me the first tract. And what it says was, I told her a little bit what happened, and I told her about this man or person called Jesus. And I asked her to bring me something to read, because I want to know about this Jesus. So a book or anything to read. So I gave it to her, and after a few days, she brought me the first Bible. And she gave it to me and she said, read this, study this. And it was a small pocket-sized Bible, both Old and New Testament. And she told me to start from the Gospel of John. Well, I had no idea where the Gospel of John is. I just opened it and it was in the book of Psalms, almost in the middle, and I started there. And then later on, somebody brought me, after a few months, another Bible, bigger one. So I started that way. 7 more years after that. Every day I say, where is your promise, Jesus, to get me out of it? When do I get out of this? But I really took that promise and I started saying, someday I will get out of this place. And the first 3 things, one after the other, that I started experiencing were peace, joy, and hope. These were the things. In fact, the first few days after that experience, I became the most peaceful person. And I was very angry before that. I was mean to the guards. I always create a problem. I insult them. I was very bad to them. Suddenly they found me to be peaceful person. And there was this peace that reigned in me that I really even didn't understand. That was the first thing that I experienced. Then I started saying, someday I will get out of this place. Hope. I got that hope. And then something that cheers me up, hope, joy. Just happy, never before. So those were these things. And then I went on studying the Bible and praying. I was praying a lot, almost all day by reading. And there was no one to teach me how to pray, how to study, and all those things, because I was in solitary confinement. I am alone. So I read the Bible and I pray. And I started experiencing many things, including the Holy Spirit. And I enjoyed after that. Those 7 years, even now when I see it back, those 7 years were the most beautiful years in my whole life. Because I was so close to Him. It was like having a conversation every time, in the Word, and studying, and experiencing His Spirit, and the change in me. It was very obvious for me that my whole thing was changing. started changing. And that starts from my mind and my worldview and my, all those communist ideology for years and years that I was taking, and that had to be washed away, stage by stage. But after 2 years after I met him, he started nagging me again, this time in my heart really, and in my mind, to forgive that man. And I resisted for 2 years. I said, no, how can I forgive him? And I was counting what he did on me, on my family, and all that. In fact, after some time, even when I open the Bible and start reading, it seems that the whole thing I read is about forgiveness. And I couldn't really resist that. After resisting for 2 years almost, but I had to give up and forgive. And I really said to him, Jesus, please forgive me. I had to forgive, but I resisted. And you forgave me, and who am I not to forgive? So I want to forgive, but help me. That became my prayer, help me. And then little by little, I started forgiving. And then at some point, I said to myself, and in his name, I said, when I get out of this place, I will go to him and I will meet him. Meaning that friend of mine who put me to jail. Then 12 years, right after the end of the 12 year, to the surprise of everybody, the same man who put me to jail, and he was always telling people, asking on my behalf, that I will not be released, only over his dead body. That was what he was saying. Only on my dead body, Tamrat will never be released. That was what he was saying. But suddenly, after 12 years, a release paper came to me, signed by himself. And the chief of the prison one day, he called me to his office and he gave it to me. He said, Tamrat, this is a surprise for all of us. Nobody would, in the wildest dream of himself, could think that you would be released. But here is a release paper, so get ready, you will get out tomorrow. So I got out in 2009, 2008, sorry, December 19, 2008. I got out from there. And I got out on Friday, and on Monday, I called to his office and I asked to meet him, to tell him if he agrees. And they said they would tell, and after 2 days, I think maybe, they called me and they said he agreed to meet you, so you can come to his office. And I went, and after 12 years we met in his office alone. And I quickly went and I hugged him and I said, I forgive him and I love him. So let's get all things behind and let's be friends again. He couldn't believe that. He couldn't believe his ears. But he took it seriously because he knows me. We know each other very well. We live together. We're best friends. So he knows that if I want to do something and if I say something, that I do it. So he took it, but he couldn't really take it and believe it. But we had about 2 hours in his office. He invited me to sit and speak and talk. So I told him what happened in my life. I told him about Jesus. And he heard me very well. And at some point, he just looked at me right, into my eyes, and he said, "Are you the same Tamrat or a different person?" So I told him I'm the same, but now I'm different. So at the end of it, he asked me if there is something that he would help or do something, and I told him, no, I just came to tell you, what happened in my life, and I wanted you also to know this Jesus, so that you will be transformed. But he didn't accept. And then after that, in 2012, I did this 2008. In 2012, he died. He became sick and he died in the hospital. But that forgiveness for me was something that really changed my whole thought process, my whole mindset about what hatred means, what forgiveness means. And more than it does for him, it did for me. That forgiveness, it really changed my whole perspective. And even more, I became convinced and decided. And I said, I have to live a life of forgiveness, and just for my own sake. So next to Jesus himself, that practice, that experience of forgiveness changed my life. And then after a month in Ethiopia, I came to America because my wife and our 2 children, when I was imprisoned, they stayed there for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, but they couldn't stay really. She was chased out of her job, and she was also chased by, the government, threatened to be killed, so she had to flee out of the country. She went to Kenya. She ended up in refugee camp with our 2 children. After 3 years, through a United States Embassy and United Nations, there is an organization called UNHCR. Through that process, she came to America. So before I was released, she was already here with our children. So when I was released after 12 years, I had to come and join them. They were waiting for me. She was waiting for me. We had no communication all those years, except indirectly through my sister. She communicates with her. And after about 5 years, my sister was allowed to visit me, along with few others. So she was the one who was communicating between me and my wife. Otherwise, I was not allowed to be visited by my wife. So she told me that they came to America and all that. So when I was released, I had to join them. One other miracle that Jesus did to us is, while Jesus was with me in that prison cell, those 3 nights in a row, I found out later on that he was also with my wife the same days in refugee camp. So he got us same days. So she became a follower of Jesus that way, in a different form, of course, not exactly in the way that he appeared to me, but he appeared to her in a different ways. First time in a dream, he told her, he showed her a Bible, and he told her, "This is my word, so study this." She resisted. She said, "No." Second time in a vision, she saw him, the same as she saw him in a dream. She saw him in a vision. And then third time in an audible voice. It's only after that she said okay, and she went to a Christian neighbor that she knows, a lady. She started studying the Bible and started praying there. So it's after that she came to America, after this experience. So when I met her, we were both followers of Jesus, and we wanted to continue serving him. And we started traveling around here in America, and later on even to other countries, Africa, Europe, Middle East, Asia. And we shared our lives, and thousands of people, because of that, found Jesus. Now we are working the same thing. We have a ministry of orphans and widows that we support in Ethiopia. We have 150 orphan children that we support by sponsorship from America mainly. And we have 60 widows that we are supporting. And I give training, leadership training for young leaders mainly, business leaders, government leaders, and all that. And I speak for seminars, conferences and gatherings, and at the church. That's how we live in. We have friends here in America, and we are happy. The first thing is really about Jesus himself. I mean, he changed my life. He changed my wife's life. He changed my family's life. We were communists, we were atheists, we had no God before that. And Jesus, here is what I say. I usually say Jesus found me, because he's the one who came and did his best to really to help me to know him, get him, and then of course changed my whole life and transformed our life, my wife's and mine, and then our two children too. They are also now followers of Jesus. So for anyone that doesn't have the life of Jesus, for anyone, Jesus is really the real deal that transforms our lives. So people have to really seek Jesus, and their life will definitely be changing. If he changed my life, and he did, then he can change anybody's life. Because as Paul said, when I was reading the Bible, studying, and when at one time, for the first time, I was reading the Paul's writings, where he says, I am the chief of the sinner. And I just halted this. I stopped there, and I said, if you say you are the chief of the sinners, then what would I say? I said, I think I have to say I am the chief of the sinners. So I really believe that if Jesus changed my life, and he did, he can change life. So that's number one. Number two, what I learned from 7 years of prison life with Jesus, out of the 12 years that I stayed, I learned that Jesus doesn't mean religion. He is not religion. He is just life. He is life. As he said to me, I am the life. Those 3 nights in a row, he said the same thing. He said, I am the life. He didn't say, I am religion. He didn't even say, to my surprise when I think it now, he didn't even say, I am a Christianity or something. He just said, I am Jesus, and follow me. So it's not about religion. I mean, any person can follow any religion that he likes, that's fine. If he gets it, useful, that's fine. But no one can identify Jesus with any kind of religion, because he's not. He came here on this earth to give us not religion, to give us life, and he gave that life. He gave his own life, and through that he gave us a new life. That's what I learned from those 7 years when I studied the scriptures alone. Number 3, one of the most important things that changed my life, as I said earlier, is forgiveness. I had to forgive. And the moment that I forgave, everything changed, started changing. Everything started changing, even physically. Before that, I had a lot of different kinds of problems in my physically, in my body. One by one after the other, they're gone. And I became perfectly healthy person when I came out of that prison. I had no problem at all. I had a lot of problems. When I came out there, I was perfectly healthy. So it works even physically. Of course, more than that, it works spiritually. So forgiveness is one of the key things that changes our lives. I was in double prison. That's how I express it. I was in 2 prisons. One is a physical prison. The other one is a prison of hatred, the prison of unforgiveness, the prison of revenge. I was suffering of those 2 prisons. And more than being free from that physical prison, being free from the prison of hatred and revenge was the most important one for my life to be changed. So what I say for anybody, and I say it anywhere when I speak, when I'm giving training and all that about forgiveness, is that don't waste your time in hatred and in unforgiveness and in thinking of revenge. You just forgive, and it works for you. It worked for me, not for the person that I forgive more than him, more than it did for him, it did for me. So these are the things that I want to convey.